Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Of course, my name is Gareth from III Cameras, as it always is, and today you join me looking at the Tamron 70-300mm f4.5 to 6.3 DI Mark III lens. And this is an interesting lens because it's not like a super expensive super zoom lens. It's kind of a less expensive option, but it's at that focal range for 70-300 that is incredibly versatile in lots of different ways, and it's the kind of lens that a lot of people get as maybe their second lens, or certainly within their kind of first lot of lenses. It's a super useful focal range to be able to use because there's so many different types of photography that you can use it for, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who will want to use this lens as a cheaper alternative for things like wildlife and sports as well. It's not the fastest lens out there, but that is kind of reflected a little bit in the pricing of it. Of course, if you want to check that out, there's links in the description to go and check out the lens itself. But let's start by talking about the actual lens itself, how it feels and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll get onto the image quality and autofocus and all that kind of stuff as well. But the reason I want to start with how the lens feels is because I was actually pretty surprised, to be honest, by how small, how lightweight it is. I've got it on the front of a Sony camera here. This is actually for Sony E Mount, so I've been using it with things like the A7 III, but it's so surprisingly lightweight. It's noticeably lightweight, especially for a 70-300. When I took it out, and I actually took it out of my bag, first of all, my bag felt incredibly light, but actually just picking it up with one hand, this is incredibly hand-holdable. This is remarkably compact and lightweight for your bag, but also actually when you're out shooting. Now that is a really, really nice thing to have in such a kind of versatile long zoom range. It does extend like that as you zoom out. The weight really isn't front heavy. In fact, even right now, I'd say this is still, you know, really nicely balanced. But that's something I really wanted to point out heavily because we talk about light lenses a lot, but actually this one really stuck out to me as being particularly light. Otherwise, the lens feels solid in the hands, you know? I can understand some people thinking it feels a bit plasticky. It does feel like plastic, but it feels well made, it feels well constructed, which is a nice thing to have in a lens. So let's talk about image quality, because that's what kind of really matters with a lens, you know? Where how it looks is a nice thing to have, but the image quality is what we're really all here for. Now, like I said before, I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to use this for things like wildlife and sports, and absolutely on some of the Sony cameras like the A7 III, you know, the A7R4, the A9, the A9 Mark II, stuff like that, it's going to be a good option for that kind of thing. It is f4.5 to 6.3, so it's not the fastest, as we mentioned before, but you can bump the ISO up on those cameras without really having too much of a problem. So you're going to be able to get some decent pictures. It's not going to work as well, obviously, as a much faster lens, but it does work for a good option for maybe a lower price point. I like the colors that this lens gives you as well. It looks nice, but something which really kind of stuck out to me was the sharpness. It's actually surprisingly sharp, especially in the center, but also out to the edges as well. And that seems to be the case right through the zoom range, you know, 70mm all the way through to 300mm as well. You'd be forgiven for thinking maybe it would get a little bit soft at the corners, or maybe it wouldn't be so consistent through the zoom range, but that doesn't seem to be the case. It does seem to work really nicely. What about the bokeh though? Because obviously, even though it's not a super fast lens, you are going to get those nice out of focus elements in the background. Now, I thought it was actually pretty smooth, pretty clean, quite nice looking. The actual bokeh kind of lights are not super round, they're more sort of oval shaped, but I don't mind that too much, to be honest. And I thought overall, the actual out of focus areas are nice and smooth, which is good. I didn't have really much of a problem with stuff like chromatic aberrations and stuff like that, so I thought that actually looks really nice. Now, autofocus. Obviously, we're talking about Sony cameras here, which means the autofocus is pretty much the best it can get. This lens is not the fastest autofocusing lens, which, you know, fair enough. Again, we're talking about a price point here. It's depending on how much you want to spend. This lens is certainly fulfilling a certain point in the market. The autofocus is not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just not as fast. That said, it never gave me any issues when it came to trying to do a bit of wildlife or trying to catch things quickly. I didn't really have any issues with that at all. So, you know, while it may not be the fastest in the world, it's really not too bad at all. You can certainly rely on it, is what I guess I'm saying. Something else probably worth mentioning is that there's no stabilisation in the lens. So you are relying on image stabilisation in the camera. That's fine, I think. You know, again, I think that probably is partly why this lens is the size and the weight that it is. Obviously adding stabilization into the lens would probably increase that weight and that size. So, you know, it's a trade-off. It's also a thing about price as well. That I would imagine increase the price. So, you know, it depends what you want out of your lens. It didn't really give me too much of a problem. You know, I was using a slightly higher shutter speed just to compensate for any shake. But you can bump the ISO up with these cameras without really worrying too much about it. So overall, I think this is actually a nice option for things like everyday use, for things like wildlife and sport. You could certainly get some good use out of this. You know, you might then look to upgrade depending on how seriously you're into that kind of thing. But otherwise, this is a really nice option for that kind of super versatile telephoto zoom lens that you could get without breaking the bank. You know, it makes a perfect second lens. If you've got your kit zoom lens, this makes for a great second lens to kind of expand your options. Really, yeah, really good option there. Now there's links in description so you can go and check this lens out for yourself. Go and see all of the pricing, the full description, all that kind of stuff. If you have any questions, pop it down in the comments below. I will get back to you ASAP. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, because that always helps us out a huge amount. I will see you in the next video. And as always, thanks for watching.